So, as a continuation to yesterday's class, we'll be learning about India and China. So, in the modern power structure, we have read about how the position of USA, India, and Russia have changed along the years. So, today we'll be understanding about how has the relationship between India and China has changed. So, these two, if we talk about, they are two Asian giants and with a long mountainous border. So, with looking through the geographical structure, so we share one of the boundary with it, like also not the direct boundary, but with the Tibetan boundary and the mountainous boundary to it. And it was to as a notion of like the spread of Buddhism from India that has been spread to China. So it was basically because of the religious movements that have been initiated the relationship so far. So, and also if we look through the older before the independence, the visits the Rabindranath Tagore have visited China in 1924, while also maintaining with the Indian Prime Minister once after we have gained independence. Jawaharlal Nehru also trying to maintain generous relationships with the Chinese leaders. So this has led for like after the independence of India in 1947, the and eventually in 1949 and 50, the Communist Revolution and the Communist Party, People's Party in China have been formed under the leadership of Mao. So ever since that, the India was always been a supportive of this party, whereas in yesterday's class we have read about how the USA was always skeptical about or addressing this communist revolution, whereas on the other hand, the Russia and India were on similar terms. So, in considering with that, the relationships or the claims of People's PRC, People's Republic of China, for admission into United Nations was also pushed by India. So, India has also supported China all along with its membership or addition into United Nations. Again, this was also countered by USA. So if you haven't followed up the yesterday's lecture, please go through the online lectures again. And if we look at the Indo-Chinese agreement of 1954, which was basically about the efforts on the social economic reconstruction and the technological innovations that were coming upon in the new world order. So this has allowed both India and China to live peacefully. So although the times have changed immediately after the independence of both the nations, but for amicable amount of time, like for about 5 to 6 years, the relationship between both China and India is said to have been very peaceful in nature. And India was actually shocked when there was a Chinese army entered the Tibet in 1950, and it had conducted which was basically concluded by an agreement between India and China in 1954 on recognition of Tibet and the boundaries all along with it. So it also this was also on the notion of the peaceful coexistence agreements, which were known as Panchashil. So you all might have known about Panchashil all along these years. So So India, these principles include mutual respect for each other, integral territorial integrity, sovereignty, non-aggression, non-interference in the internal affairs of each other, equality and mutual benefit. I think my voice have been cut before, but so I'm repeating again. So peaceful coexistence and the band and confidence you all might have known, which is all of Afro-Asian nations in 1955. India and China acted in great cooperation. And also in Korean War, when United States wanted United Nations to brand China as an aggressor, India has opposed it. So you should also see that how on what international platforms India has always been supportive of China. But it was a shocker for India with the Chinese aggression of 1962, and because they thought that in 1959, when Dalai Lama has took refugee in India against the central government of PRC, India was criticized by China as an aggressor. So India has criticized China as an aggressor in Tibet, and China also thought that it was India's initiative that Dalai Lama has took a refugee and wanted to be. It was because of India's support that Dalai Lama has caused this all Tibetan aggression, etc. So they thought that like it was mostly an Indian plan. Okay, so that was all they wanted to say. Like Chinese government did not do any wrongdoing in the Tibet. So it was only because of India that the Dalai Lama has initiated such thing upon the seeking help. So, and also in 1959, Chow En-lai. So, the Chow En-lai, in a letter to Nehru, he has first time questioned the establishment of boundaries between India and China. See, the boundaries between India and China are again delimited with the Britain. So when British were going, they did not go. They did not go just like that. They have created Sir Creek line and they have created McMahon dispute. So they wanted these disputes to be going on. It's obvious. So the McMahon line was a product of British policy of aggression against the Tibetan region of China, and China has always demarcated it as an illegal line. And in 1959, the specific territorial claims were also made regard to 5,000 square miles of Indian territory in NEFA. NEFA means a Northeastern Frontier Agency, which is part of Aksai Chin and Ladakh. So what happened in 1956? Nehru complained to Shaw En-lai, the premier of PRC, about the Chinese maps, which showed the wrong boundary between India and China. So Shaw En-lai clearly accepted McMahon Line as a border line between India and China. So although there was aggression, but this aggression was partly accepted again. Then culminating the Sino-Indian border of October 1962, potentially. India had suffered several reverses militarily, diplomatically, and politically and psychologically. Then coming to Colombo Conference proposals. So what happened in Colombo Conference proposals is Sino-Indian War of 1962. This has prompted Afro-Asian countries to mediate and bring about peaceful solution in a Sino-Indian border dispute also. So now what happened during this Colombo conferences? Sri Lanka, Burma, Indonesia, Cambodia, UAE, Ghana, all these countries, all these third world countries have assembled in Colombo. So in December 1962, and made certain proposals to resolve this Sino-Indian Congress, sorry, crisis. Sino-Indian Congress is China-India Congress. So we call this China-India as the Sino-Indian crisis. So the Colombo proposals were that in East, the Chinese must withdraw to the McMahon line, and Indian forces must also allow to reoccupy the position right up to that line. ఓకే అగ్రెషన్ బిఫోర్ ది అగ్రెషన్ ఇఫ్ స్పీకింగ్ ఇన్ తెలుగు అగ్రెషన్ కాకముందుకు ఏ బౌండరీలో అయితే ఎవరైతే ఎక్కడి వరకు ఉన్నారో మళ్ళీ అక్కడి వరకు స్టాండ్ ఆఫ్ పాయింట్స్ రావాలి అని చెప్పి దిస్ కొలంబన్ కాన్ఫరెన్స్ హావ్ కమ్ టు కంక్లూషన్. Then in the west, the Chinese also must withdraw 20 kilometers, and the area vacated by the withdrawals was to be regarded as delimitarized zones. These to be addressed by civilian posts on both sides until a settlement is negotiated. So that is why we keep seeing the developments of board roads, the developments of boundaries, the developments of buildings in the areas which were occupied by China, and these developments could be uh, termed illegal because they did not reach the negotiation or the standalone point, right? So our place, if that place belongs to either you or me, if we don't know whose does it belong to, then we should not be making any development in that such area. So then Sino-Indian relationships after 1962. So the hostility between China and India has grew. So this led to close relationships of China and Pakistan. Then during two Indo-Pak conflicts, what all time? 1965 and 1971, China has openly supported and helped Pakistan. Even USA also openly supported and helped Pakistan. So during Indo-Pak War, 1971, China also criticized India's role in this Bangladesh crisis. Then China supported Pakistan on the issue of Kashmir. It was only Russia who has supported India on the issue of Kashmir. And in 1971, when India and USSR concluded a treaty of peace and cooperation, the restoration of friendly relationships between India and China began to be improved only after Rajiv Gandhi has paid visit to Beijing in 1988. So they have also agreed to increase cooperation in economic, cultural, and technological fields. Then the Premier Lee Pen paid a visit to India in December 1991. So you can see the time difference. About like 30 years later, he has visited India. Then Sino relations have received a setback in early 1998 following a statement by Indian Defense Minister Fernandez that China is that that India's number one threat is China. Then China also tried to improve its relationships with India also tried to improve its relationships with China. So the during Kargil war, which had happened in 1999 with Pakistan, during this war, the China did not take any of the position. It was being neutral. And if we look about like the relationships between India and China in 21st century, we can understand that around like April 2000. So in 2000 April, in April 2000, the China and India has celebrated a 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relationships because the diplomatic relationships were established around 1949 and 50, right? So in 2000 also President K.R. Narayan has paid a long visit to China. Then 2003 again Vajpayee has also visited China and recognized Tibet as a part of China. Then 2004 China recognized Sikkim as a formal part of India. When and also the President Wem Jiabao and President Hu Jintao have also visited India around like 2005 and 2006. They also agreed to establish partnership for peace and prosperity. The shared vision of India and China for the 21st century. This was signed in January 2008 during Prime Minister Manmohan Singh visiting China. So this is also very important MCQ. Then in October 2009, crucial climate change negotiation in Copenhagen was also signed. Then 2015, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also paid his visit to China and signed 24 bilateral agreements amounting to around like US $10 billion. Then US latest developments of India and China relationships. You can also see there has been a diplomatic reset in 2005 and a breakthrough agreement on Dipsang and Dimchak troops withdrawal was reached only in late 2024. And Modi and Xi met on the sidelines of BRICS in Kazan summit in October 2024. And also, the China and India strengthened their bilateral relationships. So the both sides must maintain momentum through senior level and on a diplomatic level talks to resolve remaining friction points and also sustainable engagement through SC on BRIC platforms. This will reinforce the multilateral trust and conflict avoidance. And the multipolar Asia also needs India to act as a civilizational balancer, not as a proxy within the geographical blocks. So what it is trying to say is like India shall not just be a proxy, but it has to actually be a superpower. It has to actually be a power which can try to rebalance the world and resolve the differences bilaterally and peacefully, as there is no way in this atomic age. So this is how the differences between India and China could be resolved. So continuing with the yesterday's chapter, so this is what we have read about USA, Russia, and China. Now we'll learn about India, Bangladesh. So I'll add one more slide. So do wait now. I'll add one more slide. So this is another lecture. So this will also continue in two lectures. So today we'll be reading about India relationships with Bangladesh. So now Bangladesh, we all know that recently Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina's government was overthrown by the unrest, and it was taken over by the military. And we also seen her, she was given refugee in India. So let us understand how has been the relationships between Bangladesh and India has been all along. So India's bilateral relationships with its South Asian neighbors have been long-standing issues and problems. So we share India shares longest boundary with Bangladesh. So India shares longest boundary with Bangladesh. So you could have understood that how important the relationship between Bangladesh should be there. And also prime ministers of India, all the prime ministers have always underlined the importance of friendly relationships with neighbors. So now Sheikh Mujibur Rahman has formed a government of the new country in Bangladesh in 1971. So when Bangladesh was liberated, Mujibur Rahman was allowed to form a government. So this initial 1972 to 75, the India and Bangla relationships were like of mutual needs and understanding, because we have helped them gain liberation, right? So the relationships very peaceful, and it was like give and take type. So now it also led to Indo-Bangla Treaty of Friendship and Peace. This was signed between the both the countries, like which would go on for 25 years and also could be extended in future, like if possible, and with a change of terms or necessarily and not necessarily. And a permanent joint rivers commission was also set up. Why? Because India and Bangladesh share this all the rivers, and the Ganga river also changes its tributaries and it get divided. So on this basis also, we maintain these river boats so that the waters in the upper higher regions and the water in the lower regions could be used properly. So the March 25, 1972 comprehensive trade agreement was concluded. So about this, after the assassination of Sheikh Mujib in 1975, many military dictatorships have given rise in Bangladesh. So these military dictatorship are mostly anti-India. So, but the major problems between India and Bangla can be seen in the following terms. So, first one is border problem. So, India and Bangla have signed this border agreement in 1974. And what happened in 1976 is Bangladesh have claimed 8 hectares of Muhur Shah area in Beloni's division of Tripura. So this has led to discontentment among these two regions. And by 2000, both the countries were successful in demarcating almost the whole border problem between them. So next one would be sharing of this Ganga waters. So the Ganga mainstream also bifurcates in the south of Farakka in Murshidabad, a district of West Bengal. So the dispute here is below the Farakka barrage during the lean season, like during the not so monsoon season, from January to May, river flows reduces to the minimum. So this with the agreement in 1996, these two countries have signed. Uh, these two countries have signed historic Ganga water sharing treaty. So now another dispute of New Moor Island dispute. So Newmore Island is nothing but a distance of 5.2 kilometer from Indian mass, landmass, and 7.2 kilometer from landmass of Bangladesh. So there's an island called Newmore. So India and Bangladesh have also had disputes around this uh, island, saying that now what happened is India has hoisted its flag in this island in 1980. Now, in 1980, Bangladesh claimed ownership of this land, and it said that it belongs to it. So this dispute has been going on. Now, another dispute is Teen Biga corridor. So, what is Teen Biga corridor is? Thin, thin means in a Bengal, it's for numeral, which is three. Biga means area. So it's like konni acres of land corridor. That's what they meant to say. So what happened is it comes as an international dispute, right? International boundary, it comes under international boundary. So in 1974, international agreement between India and Bangladesh was agreed to sign this lease the strip of land to Bangladesh in exchange for enclaves for securing territorial continuity of the both the regions. So that's how the dispute or the settlement was carried on. Now, this leasing out of Teen Biga corridor to Bangladesh took place in 1992. You have to remember all these years because it's very important, especially with the MCQs and the competitive exams. The examiners, paper setters have been becoming very creative. So they will ask you to arrange them chronologically. So you have to remember each and everything. So I know it's very difficult, but over a period you can overcome, and with the frequent revision also you can understand easily. Now, important problem between India and Bangladesh is this refugee problems. So the refugee problems can be seen in the Chakma refugees who has mostly taken this shelter in Tripura region. So India said that these refugees are to return to Chittagong hill tracts from where they had migrated. So then the relationships between India and Bangladesh in recent years. So Indo-Bangladesh Maritime Delimitation Award 2014, in which the India and United Nations Tribunal was awarded Bangladesh a four-fifth of area in the in the Bay of Bengal. So this is how the international organizations also have been helping or like creating more Caesars in settling these disputes. So this, however, ended a dispute over this sea. Then land border agreement. So this land border agreement has come into force in 2015. So this was also under Sheikh Hasina and Narendra Modi government. So this was what? This was for the exchange of enclaves between the two nations, as mentioned in the Thin Biga corridor. So India also shares the longest international land boundary with Bangladesh, which is more than 4,000 kilometers long. Then Bangladesh on almost every important sector of bilateral cooperation, security, trade, connectivity, energy, civil nuclear agreement, defense, and transportation. Both the countries have tried to maintain the best possible relationships among each other. Then Bangladesh also exports garments, pharmaceuticals, jute products to India, while India supplies essentials like cotton, machinery, and petroleum. Then India is the largest development partner, receiving a significant portion of Indian lines of credit. So the two nations also share both linguistic and cultural connections in Bangladesh, Assam, Tripura, Meghalaya. So all of the Sheikh Hasina-led Awami League government marks a significant political transformation. So during this Awami League government, India and Bangladesh had developed relationships far better than in comparison with the other times that we have seen through. So now the new interim government, like if you talk about the latest relationships, the new interim governments have come into the picture. So what happened is they have expressed the commitment to maintaining positive relationships with India, and India's lack of anticipation of this political transition have led to miscalculations in diplomatic approach. So now, with the new interim government that has been formed, although they try to establish better relationships with India, but you can see the China factor coming into picture in here. Now, what happened with Chinese factor is China has increased its presence in Bangladesh through infrastructure projects, defense cooperation, and economic investments. So putting this all these things in picture, now China has now put the Bangladesh as a part of its pearl of string trade circuit, and also formed and also tried to make Bangla into Chinese debt ridden country. So the Bangladesh participation in Belt and Road Initiative has raised concerns for India regarding the debt dependency and strategic influence. So you can see the areas or the boundaries or the nations around India has been falling slowly into the debt of China, and they've been losing their sovereignty to the Chinese control. Now, what happens in these positions? India will be almost all the corners will be covered by China. So that's how important India should maintain its relationships with its neighborhood countries. Now, next one is India must counterbalance the Chinese influence by offering sustainable economic partnerships. So that's why after the recent the foreign policy was neighborhood first policy, which has been followed by India, right? So this was mainly to understand like how the relationships between neighboring countries could help secure the India's position. And also, interim governments have made attempts to revive SARC platform, which was dormant for a decade. So, why was SARC dormant for a decade? It was because of Pakistan and Indian issue. So, you can comment which SARC summit, which year Islamabad summit had uh, not had been developed. So do text to tell me in the comment section. Now way forward, like how can India and Bangladesh can have better relationships with each other is India's foreign secretary December 2000 excuse me 2024 visit to Dhaka was a step in right direction. Then New Delhi should engage proactively with Bangladesh interim government to ensure there should be a continuity in bilateral cooperation. Now, structured diplomatic framework should be addressed to develop misunderstandings and reduce any tensions between these two nations. And the interim Bangladeshi government has invited Indian journalists for on-ground reporting. Then India and Bangladesh need to strengthen their border management mechanisms to prevent illegal activities happening or ensuring in the borders. Then India and Bangladesh must coordinate effectively in global forums like UN, WTO, G20 to advance the common interest. Now let us understand. So this is what the India and Bangladesh relationships has been happening all along. Now let us understand Indo and Pakistan relationships. So I think India and Pakistan relationships would be happening only half in this lecture, so we might have to continue the other part in the other coming lecture. So I hope you all will keep a tab on it. So first, let us understand like how has the relationships between India and Pakistan has come to certain tensions. So first, the strong historical, geographical, and cultural familial association between India and Pakistan. Like the two countries never came to a position to build cooperation. So among other, the major issues would be strain. Then the first one would be Kashmir issue, most important. So after the partition, Maharaja of Kashmir, like the Hari Singh Maharaja of Kashmir, he decided to postpone the decision regarding accession to India or Pakistan. So now what happened? Tribal invaders were supported and backed by Pakistan invaded the area. So now again in 1947, Maharaja has acceded to India for securing or helping the rebellion accession. So during this, what happened with this? The Pakistan has rejected Maharaja's accession to India. So now the India took this matter to Security Council in 1948. So the dispute has been till date not resolved. So then displaced persons are minority issues like during the partition, the India minorities and from India and Pakistan face the problem of refugees and minorities. And Dominion Agreement of April 1948 had clearly provided the responsibility for the protection of minorities. So this has led for the Nehru-Liaquat Agreement, which was signed in 1950. So, so the canal water dispute arose out of the canal water dispute arose uh, out of division of Punjab into Western Punjab, which came to be a part of Pakistan, which came to be a part of Pakistan, and the and East Punjab that remained with India. And agreement of May 4, 1948, India had agreed to supply water to canals of Pakistan. And 1950, Pakistan repudiated this agreement and issue was resolved with signing of India-Pakistan Indus Waters Treaty in 1960. So this was mediated by World Bank and the boundary dispute was dispute of Radcliffe Award. So dispute of Radcliffe Award, the dispute of Radcliffe Award was in 1947 and the countries have accomplished the gigantic task in approximately 25 years. So this is how the issue between India and Pakistan had always been. So the countries have accomplished the gigantic task in approximately like the 25 years. So now what happened was like the demarcation of eastern Punjab boundary has completed around like the June 1960. Uh, And similarly, the Rajasthan and Pakistan boundary dispute of 1963 has also been settled. So now the now coming to Rana of Kutch issue, the princely state which was situated on Gujarat Sindh border. So this was occupied by Pakistan in 1964. So basically, Pakistan has sent his troops to occupy this northern area of Ran of Kutch. And now in April, same year, so the next year, April 1965, the war developed between India and Pakistan. So the war, in June 1965, both the countries have agreed to a ceasefire. And it was agreed on the both parts that the armies would go back to the original position around January 1st, 1965. So the occupation, uh, the troops of Pakistan were sent back. Now, the other conflict zones between India and Pakistan could be seen in notion of like Siachen Glacier, the Creek Estuary in the Rann of Kutch, and Vulla project or the barrage that has to be constructed by J&K on the Jhelum River. So, India and Pakistan wars are the major uh, historic points where the disputes have aggravated between these two countries. So, the three major wars that have taken place are around 1947, 65, and 71. And the unofficial one would be considered as 1999 Kargil War. So the 1947 war first So also now we'll be starting with wars with Pakistan of India and Pakistan and the latest developments in the Pahalgam terror attack and the operations in the. We'll be learning about all these things in the upcoming lecture. So you please go through this lecture on in YouTube and make a follow-up notes. So the important questions would be they will be asking the relationship between or the crisis the initiation of crisis between India and Pakistan over the years, or either between India and China, or how has China has played role between the role between India and Pakistan relationships, or yesterday that I've told about USA and Russia and the role played by USA in initiating the or aggravating the disputes between India and Pakistan. So please go through today's and yesterday's lecture and more about Pakistan. We will be learning it in the next class. So that's all for today. See you in next class.